Hello, Algebra 2. This video lesson goes over the first part of Chapter 6.1. The chapter goes through all of the various rules you'll need to know about working with exponents for the rest of the year. And I'm going to break this into two videos because it is a long list of rules. The first of those rules is called the product of powers property. Personally, I'm not particularly fixated on whether or not you remember the name of the property. I want to make sure you understand how it works. If you have two numbers that both have the same base, two powers I should say, that both have the same base, notice these both have a and these both have 2. As long as they're the same base, you can add their exponents. So in this case it doesn't help you a lot, you're calling it m plus n. But in this case you're adding 5 plus 3, which makes 8. It's a much handier answer to carry around than what you'd had before. So based on that, go ahead and do questions 1, 2, and 3. When you come back, I'll show you the answers to those. Okay, I'm going to assume that you paused, that you worked out 1, 2, and 3, and you're ready to see the answers, and here they are. Notice, for example, that this last one, -6 plus 8 together make +2, and the base stays in the parentheses like it had been all along. So it's -5 in parentheses to the second power. There were no parens here. You don't need to have parens, but the -3 and the -2 this time added up to make a negative number. 3 to the -5th is that answer. Let's move on to the next property. This one happens to be called the power of a power property. In this case, if you've got a base with an exponent and then you raise that whole thing again to another power, then it's fine to get rid of the parentheses and just multiply those two exponents together. So m times n, which again doesn't help you a whole lot, but when they're numbers it does. 5 times 3 becomes 15. Now you've gotten rid of the parentheses and you've only got one exponent. Based on that, go ahead and do those three. I'm sorry if my handwriting isn't terribly clear. This second one says c to the -5th to the 4th power, and the third one down here says y to the -8th to the -3rd power. So go ahead and hit the pause button. When you come back, I'll show you the answers to these three. Okay, I'm going to assume that you paused. You've done all three of those and you're ready to see the answers, and here they are. So notice that the -8 times the -3, just like it normally would have, a negative times a negative became a positive. So the result became y to the +24th power. Don't hesitate to come into class if you have questions about any of these three. I'm going to move on to the next property. A block did get a chance to talk about those first two properties, but we did not talk about the power of a product property. And in this case, if you've got two numbers in parens and an exponent outside, that exponent applies to both the numbers inside. Notice this is only doable if those two numbers in the parens were multiplied by each other. It's not a plus b or a minus b. But when you've got a times b, you can effectively distribute that exponent to both of the pieces inside. So it becomes a to the m times b to the m. Now when you only are working with letters, this isn't terribly helpful. But here I've got 7 times 2 to the 3rd power. Well, that I could change to 7 to the 3rd power times 2 to the 3rd power. By the way, if you wanted to write it without the times sign, that's fine as well. And you would have written it as 7, this isn't easy for me to do with this pen, to the 3, there. Okay, but that's the same thing. 7 to the 3rd, 2 to the 3rd here is the same as here. So based on that, again, here are three similar questions. 12, 13, and 14 happen to be what they're numbered. Don't worry about the numbers of the questions. Just go ahead and answer each of those. They're, as you'll notice, they're kind of flavors of what looks almost like the same question, but they're not. Hit the pause button. When you come back, I'll show you the three different answers. All right. right, I'll assume that you did that. And here are the answers. For number 12, it's like distributing that 2. So you get 3 to the second, x to the second. And here you're distributing that 3. So it's 3 to the 2 times 3, x to the third. Notice that 2 times 3 is 6. So your answer really is this one, 3 to the 6th, x to the third. And also notice here's the answer to number 14. But this one really isn't done. 3 to the second, you know what that is. That's 9. So I am going to expect in a lot of cases that you'll be able to work this out even if you don't have a calculator. You should have been able to say that that was 9x squared. And certainly this is a much easier number to wrap your mind around than this one is. And so we would consider this finished or simplified. And this one I would not say is done. I'm fine because I don't expect you to know what 3 to the 6th power is unless you have a calculator handy. So I don't mind you calling that a finished answer. But this one, I would expect you actually to know what 3 to the 3rd power is. I would expect you to know 3 times 3 times 3. Well, that's 9 times 1 more 3, or in other words, 27. And your answer should have been 27x to the 6th. This answer is finished. This one is not. Okay, we're going to move on to the last property in this video, the negative exponent property. Whenever you have a negative exponent, it simply means that the power is on the wrong side of the dividing line. So in this case, it's on top of, essentially it's on top of 1. You could have made this whole thing over 1, right? So you need to flip it and put it on the other side of the line. So it becomes 1 over a to the m. Similarly here, this becomes 1 over 2 to the third. So based on that, go ahead and do those. Yes, you have to do 2 different things in order to finish these, but go ahead and tell me the answers to questions 7, 8, and 9. When you've finished them, come back and I'll show you the answers. Okay, I'm going to assume that you did that, and there are your answers to 7 and 8 and 9. Notice the 2-step process for number 7. First of all, make it 6 to the negative 3 because you added the negative 2 and the negative 1. And then move it to the other side of the dividing line. It becomes 1 over 6 to the 3rd power. Same thing for each of these 2 other questions. Come into class if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you. Otherwise, that's the end of this part of the lesson from chapter 6.1. There will be another video lesson for the next homework, not for this homework.